es ist soweit, wir sind on the field, wir sind auf dem Floor. Wir haben den Johannes hier zu unserer rechten Seite, der ganz wunderbar Oasis Games hier betreut. Und wir gucken uns jetzt einfach mal Monkey King an. Ja? Was haltet ihr davon? Ich glaube, wir gehen einfach mal hin. Ne?
Ja, absolut.
Super. So. Excuse me. Ja, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Friday and Saturday's gonna be.
Ja, wie ihr seht, no? Ganz wunderbarer Stand, ganz liebevoll alles gemacht, hier mit echtem Bambus, ja, das ist kein falscher Bambus, echter Bambus. Und wir werden jetzt auch mit dem Entwickler reden, wir haben also die Möglichkeit mit dem Entwickler über das Spiel zu reden, da ist er schon. Welcome.
Hello.
My name is Kim.
Nice to meet you, Kim. My name is Martho.
Marco, wonderful to have you here, wonderful to have a development of such an awesome game. Maybe you just explain to the people who doesn't know anything about Monkey King, because they're too young, because he's much older. How old is he now?
He is, wow, expressed in human numbers.
Yeah.
He's pretty old. Like at the start of the game, he has been like banished into this cave for like 500 years, and he was already quite old then. So he's a pretty ripe age. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you know anything about the Journey to the West, what the game is based on.
Maybe if you have a bit of a feedback of a backstory from Monkey King, what he actually, because he means more than just being an amazing figure in the game.
Yes, correct. So actually the video game is based on a movie of the same name, and both of them are based on this Chinese epic. Like it's a centuries-old Chinese story called Journey to the West, and it's basically think about like Lord of the Rings mixed with like Greek mythology. Like it's that epic, it's that wide-ranging, and apparently it is also a very good source material for games and movies.
Yeah.
You see here, the Monkey King is one of the characters in the old Chinese epic, and is actually the protagonist of the game. You'll be playing him. He has just you can see him here like in full armor. He was actually kind of like like a demigod. He was very strong character, and he would like randomly fight with other gods and stuff. But he was very arrogant. So at one point in the story, he chooses a fight with the wrong god, namely Buddha, and Buddha just shoves him away, say, "You've been too arrogant. I'm going to banish you and take away all of your powers." He's basically banished for like 500 years, and then gets awakened by a character which you will see in the game with this little monk. And he then has to do good deeds. He has to go through the level and help the villagers, help do some good stuff in order to regain his former glory.
Looks amazing already. Very nice.
So this is the little kid that actually awakened him.
Yeah.
You can see him here. He's like he is a good fighter, but he has not most of his magic skills he needs to regain again through playing the game.
Okay.
As you can see, the Monkey King is.
Who is that in the
Oh yeah, that's a little monk who's actually also one of the characters in the original epic, and he actually per accident awakened the Monkey King.
Okay, but in the back, who's that?
That's what so basically the village that you see up ahead is actually being attacked, and all the children are being kidnapped by this evil spirit, and the little boy actually saved one of the girls.
Okay.
So they'll accompany you in your travel and help you out.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
The game is actually it's like a mixture of action and adventure. So you'll be doing a lot of exploration, fighting, and it also has some RPG elements. So you can develop your character. For example, you can get more health, more magic, as well as all sorts of magic abilities.
Yeah.
The game follows the movie story quite closely. However, it shows a lot of more background info. So you get even more stuff than was in the movie.
Okay. So it looks like it just happened. Huh? The evil spirit just got all the people.
Exactly. So this is one of the villagers who is slightly traumatized at this point, as you can see. And basically, the game is full of these sort of cutscenes where they sort of explain to you what you want to do next.
And from the development part, what was the greatest challenge that you had while developing this?
I would say that definitely one of the challenges that you will have is to get like a nice balance between a very rich story with very cool characters, and at the same time also making it into this very fun game to play. Like century-old tradition into this very modern, cool action game.
I think it's quite a challenge because you have to translate and you have to make a transition between both. I mean, this is the gaming in itself. The industry is very in Europe. It's very westernized.
Sure.
You know, now we have this Chinese tradition. Was it interesting or was it kind of challenging for you?
That's a very good point. Like one of the major challenges, like so the game of course is published globally, and the Asian markets, apart from China where the story is from, will, for example, Japan and Korea will be actually quite familiar with the story because they've seen the television series, they've seen the movies, they've seen the horde of other games based on it. But for a Western story, for example, myself, I'm from Europe, and the first time I got into touch with a little bit of the story from the West, Journey to the West, was with Dragon Ball Z, because the main character has the same name.
Ah.
That's actually quite different story. So that's definitely a challenge which we hope to like bridge with Monkey King. One thing that really helped in terms of gameplay, which I can show a little bit, is that the action style is one of the points where the game really shines, and it copies here, as I can show you, a lot from like 70s and 80s Jackie Chan Hong Kong movies, which a lot of Western audiences will be quite familiar with. So you got your attacks, you have your, for example, let me show you this. Like this is very Chinese Kung Fu style. You can also use, for example, items, or you can, for example, take this.
Am I right that Jackie Chan spoke the voice?
Actually, in the movie he did the voice, correct? Yeah. Sadly for the game, we had another actor. However, for the game has been localized in all the major languages, so German, French, and for a lot of those countries, we actually found. They actually found the person who does the voice for Jackie Chan in the movies to voice the Monkey King.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Finish this guy up.
If you would compare this character to Western characters from, but he's actually also a manga hero. Yeah, he comes from manga.
Yeah, he's been used, like the Journey to the West is such a rich and popular source material that he has come in all kinds of shapes. So he's like, he had his own movie, his own game, he has been side character in other parts of the story. Comics, awards of video games as well before. Yeah.
But they were more in the 90s, the beginning of the 2000s.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you would compare him character-wise, with which character you would compare him? Like a traditional European or Western animation or spirit? I mean, I wouldn't say Homer Simpson, but...
Homer Simpson? like the yellow...
He's cool, huh?
Yeah, he's cool. He's like, it's a very good question. I would say he is like a very tough hero who's very reluctant to do stuff, but actually has quite a big heart. So I think there's a lot of similar, like I cannot think of one on the top of my head, but I think we have a lot of strong characters like that in the West as well, in movies as well as cartoons. Yeah.
And it's a Chinese company you're working for. You developed that game. How was the working?
We are actually Oasis Games, actually the publisher of the PC version, and we are also one of the investors of the game. Like we invested in the game together with the IP holder, which is October Media, and the game and Sony Japan. And Sony Japan was actually responsible for the producing and developing of the game. Yeah, so it's very complex, very interesting. But yes,
very complex.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, I forgot the last part of your question.
No, you answered everything.
Okay.
It's because actually it's about your mindset. What is the drive that you have investing so much time and love in this game? If it would be just a job, it's something else than being part of the whole business.
It's really exciting because we can see now that both in terms of like the rise of indie games, that actually the game landscape is becoming more and more inclusive. You get a lot of stuff that before maybe wasn't there. You get very unique games, but you also get very unique cultures into gaming. And this is a prime example of what Chinese culture has to offer in terms of a cool game, which maybe also can be a portal to very rich Chinese culture that not everybody's necessarily aware of in the West.
So culture-wise, what do we find in the game? I mean, ceremonies, when we have, I don't know, rituals? What is the where we find parts of the culture which we can learn about or adopt somehow?
I would say almost every part. Like just from what we just saw, there's like for example, you have certain enemies who are directly from like this Chinese, how do you say that? Like cryptozoology course. For example, they are powered by this talisman on their in front of their chest, and the only way to actually like destroy them is getting the talisman. This is directly from like this sort of Chinese mythology and stuff. We have for example as you can see, the Monkey King actually has different magic moves. For example, this is the Phoenix dance.
Yeah.
Phoenix, a very important stock character in Chinese culture.
Yeah.
And you will see other magic abilities that he will unlock. For example, he will get out his fur and make them into fire projectiles, which is also that comes straight from that really old novel. You will see a bunch of different characters, both friendly characters, both friends and foes, who are also directly from this very rich and long Chinese mythology. Yeah.
So it seems that you really dive deep into the cultural aspects.
Yes. For example, here you see the Buddha Guan Yin,
Yeah.
which is actually the part where you save the game. Where you save the game and where you can improve your spells, like where you can level them up. You see some of the Chinese characters here, which is like the chakra, like
Really nice, really nice.
So, for example, just having this statue here to use, that's already a good example. But like what you can see here.
Okay. Yeah, I see
Chinese
also the environment, how detailed it is, and the landscape for sure.
Reminiscent of traditional China.
It doesn't look like North America, definitely. Yeah.
I can show you a bit of the.
How long is the game going to be? With all the quests.
The entire game, basically we're playing an early chapter of the game right now, which is the second chapter. The entire game will take about 10 hours to complete.
10 hours.
And if you find all the items and achievements and stuff, it will take a little bit longer than that.
Okay.
It's available already on pre-order for the PC version on Steam, and it will be released on the 17th of October of this year.
Oh, nice. Wow, it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
We can see here like a mid boss fight. I'll use some of the magic here, which does a lot of damage, but then it will also deplete your yellow bar, which is
Nice.
one of the things which you might have noticed is that in order to keep with the general aesthetic of the movie, we don't add a lot of like numbers and health bars. However, what you can do is you have a magic skill, which is like the all-seeing eye or the mind's eye, where for a short time you can actually check if you're doing damage or not with the creatures.
It's like a pre-vision if you
Exactly.
if you use the right right magic.
Yeah, and you can also see other items which might be interacting or
Okay.
actually use some health.
How long did you work on that game?
This game has been in production for I would say I think it's already 2 years almost.
Okay. So there will be also a movie or something in addition to the game?
Yeah, so actually the Chinese movie came out in 2015.
Yeah.
Which is maybe quite interesting to talk a little bit about. The movie actually, I mentioned before October Media, or like the IP holder and the creators of the movie.
Yeah.
I would say they're like on par with like a Chinese Pixar. If you think about it, they make very high quality, very interesting Chinese animation movie, and it became a huge hit in China.
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah.
And even got
so easy.